So I'm going to speak tonight about lucid dreaming and mindful sleeping. Sounds like kind of a contradiction in terms, but as you'll discover, it's not. I want to say outright that I'm not trying to pretend to be an expert or anything on lucid dreaming. I'm not. In fact, I'm terrible at lucid dreaming. I'll be honest with you. I've tried so hard. I've tried so hard in so many ways. So I'll be outright from the start. This will be more humorous, really, about how I failed at lucid dreaming with many, many different teachers. But there's a lot to learn about the whole subject. I think I first got interested in it when I was at university. Got a book out on it with countless different techniques for lucid dreaming. What is lucid dreaming? Dreaming is, here we're talking about when you're actually sleeping, okay? We're talking about lying down, going to sleep, and you're dreaming. And the first type is that while you're dreaming about this, that, and the other, you suddenly realize, I'm dreaming. Okay. And the strangest thing is that just that realization that you are dreaming suddenly changes everything in a strange way. You brings in at least a good portion of your normal everyday awareness while you're in the dream, and you don't wake up, not immediately anyway. And then the dream becomes much more intense and much more vivid at that point. And for most people, they start to float in the dream or just go flying on the spot. Seems to be the most common thing. There are degrees of this. There's like semi-lucid dreams, which they don't yet really realize they're dreaming, but they float anyway. They're levitating around, flying dreams. And everybody's had flying dreams, and it feels great when you have a flying dream. But a flying dream is still different from a lucid dream where you fly. Okay, one, you might be sort of semi-lucid and flying around, but not really realizing that you're dreaming. Okay? The other one is where you're fully aware that you're awake, just as like we are now, but while in the dream state, and then you're flying and choosing to fly. That's the big difference here. Choice. You then have choice about what you're doing. Normal dreams, there is no choice. Okay? So the normal type tends to be along that line. These are kind of spontaneous lucid dreams that you might get. Certainly not everybody's had them, but an awful lot of people have had these, but not normally very often. But they can actually be cultivated. They can be deliberately brought about. Why would you do that? Well, there's many sort of fun reasons for doing it and very sort of spiritual reasons for doing so as well. I think when I was at university, I was more interested in the fun side. So I would try them out. And there's two types of techniques to do this. One of them is called NILD. The other one is called WILD. NILD is N-I-L-D, standing for, strangely, it should be M, I think. Maybe it is wild. Maybe it is mild. I'm forgetting it wrongly, perhaps. It was mnemonic-induced lucid dreaming. Mnemonic-induced lucid dreaming. Many techniques for this. Some are very classic. And I tried them. Looking at your watch. Look at your watch. And every time you look at your watch, I haven't got one. I haven't had a watch in years and years. Every time you look at your watch, you say to yourself, oh, I am dreaming. Every time you say, look, oh, I am dreaming. Until you get like a habit of every time you look at the watch, I'm dreaming. And if you're doing it like again and again and again all day, much more than you normally do, okay? At some point in your dream, you look at your watch. And the weird thing is that any kind of clock in the dream comes out all weird. It just doesn't work right. Whether it's digital or whether it's analog, it's all strange for some reason. And you automatically say to yourself, oh, I'm dreaming, while seeing this kind of a weird anomaly in the matrix, so to speak. And then whoop, you realize. And once you realize that you're dreaming, the consciousness comes back on. It brings back your awareness into that dream. Never worked for me. I spend all my time looking at the clock and wondering what time it is when I'm going anywhere, and worrying about the time. It never worked. Generally speaking, a lot of these mnemonic ones do involve, am I dreaming? And continually saying this to yourself, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming in various circumstances? Or even in the Tibetan yoga practice, they actually would say, not am I dreaming, but I am dreaming, as in trying to realize that this is a dream. And like even this normal daily life is like a dream, to realize the similarities between a normal life and a dream. That there has the same kind of transience to it, that things are impermanent, and there's this essencelessness to these things. So they do the same kind of thing, recollecting this all the time. That's one of the main ways of doing it. I found it distinctly disappointing and ineffective, but it is. I'm sure many people have got great results with this. Maybe you just need to be very disciplined and doing it all the time until you get it. And if you do doing it, the other main technique you need to do with that is to keep a dream diary. When you wake up in the morning, keep a dream diary, recalling it, and have very strong intention before you go to sleep that you will, one, recall your dreams, but two, that you will be aware that you're dreaming like this. But it's, even if you do it, from what I've gathered from studying with many people, and while I'm pretty useless at lucid dreaming, I have at least studied with people who are world experts on lucid dreaming. And what I've gathered is that these kind of lucid dreams are not really yet fully lucid. They're not quite as powerful as a waking induced lucid dream. That's the one I was much more interested in, was waking induced lucid dreams. I had a chance while I was at university still studying with this profound Taoist master who was an absolute expert on this subject. And so I went on his workshop on this one. And he was Qigong master, a Qigong master, with this energy work, And so he taught a way of doing this using Qigong. He taught us the whole things. So I'll give you a £160 workshop in 1 minute. First thing, lie on your right-hand side with your head on your hand, the hand around the ear. This stimulates certain points, apparently. And then you're sleeping on your side, like the Buddha image, if you've ever seen these kind of sleeping Buddha, so to speak. Apparently, this is, again, stimulating certain things and making your energy balanced in a certain way that makes it easier to happen. And then you place your mind, I think from my memory, it was on the left nostril, which balances out the hemispheres of the brain quicker. And then only for your breathing around to make it the right nostril. That's commonly practiced in lucid dreaming as well. The main part of the technique, though, was to focus on the central channel of energy running from the crown of the head to the perineum. And in our tradition, we know this channel because that's where the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh base of the mind is all in this channel. And if you've ever listened to me, the 7 bases, I talked about this already. So we focus on the whole of that channel, all the way from the whole line of it, being aware of it, while we go to sleep. And that was his basis for that technique. And that one I found quite effective. I said quite effective, better than zero. That one actually worked, but really difficult. You just don't fall asleep. It's most likely the thing to happen is you just don't fall asleep. But they say it's best to do it like in the early morning, once you've already had a good sleep, and then you're going in and out of dreams, and that's the best time to do these things. But for me, it turned out the other way around. I finally got it to work when I was studying for an exam until like late at night, or more like in the early morning, and I had basically no time left to sleep before I did the exam. So I was forced to take a power nap, so to speak. And that's what he taught. He taught a power nap. If you master this technique, you can get a whole night's sleep worth in 1 hour. That was his claim. I thought, that's useful. I'd like that. I'd like to gain, 7 hours a day out of a 24-hour day. So that's almost 1/3 of your life you could reclaim. yeah, I'll take that. So I practiced that, and somehow, even though I was very tired, I kind of managed it. And it was, I was already used to doing qigong, and basically, while you're in this state of being centered on this whole energy channel, your awareness of the energy increases. When you're doing qigong, you're already aware of your energy. Okay, if you've never done qigong, but basically you can feel these energy meridians, and you do things, moving energy around them. So this time, being aware of the energy system, but then somehow as you're going towards the sleep, it starts to charged. You start to get charged up with energy. Basically, what sleep is recharging. That's why we go to sleep. We recharge. But we're conscious while we're recharging. But this time, I was being very conscious while I was recharging. And what happened is, it felt like this. All my little acupoints is where you put the needles in acupuncture. These little points all the way along all the acupuncture meridians. It's like they extended out a little antenna. So I became felt like I was being electrified. I don't know what actual being electrified is like, but it must be a bit like this. Immense amount of electricity sort of going through me, being electrified. And then once it reached its absolute peak of being electrified, pop, suddenly popped straight out from where I was into this dream world on the spot. Bang. No, like gentle, gradual change. Just pop, and out you go into this other body in a completely different place. And what do? First thing I did, Superman, off I go. First thing, whoosh, off I go, whizzing away. Until I got really excited, and but once that excitement was starting to pass, I then got, the strange thing is just that I had just this instantaneous thought about my body, and straight back into the body, bing. And I just remember it very vividly. I went back into the body. I just did like that slightly with my hands just to check. It's still there. I can still use it. Let go of it and went click straight back into it. Just like walking out of a car, walking into another car, but quicker than that. Just straight into the other one. Right on. But I couldn't sustain it for all that long. But what I do remember was the colors. I swear, there were colors that this world does not have. We have our reds and indigos and our violets. There were colors there that we don't have. I'm sure of it. So I couldn't put a word to them. I just don't recognize that. And into the colors, just super intensity. Colors that glow with this liveliness, vibrancy of this. Incredibly beautiful. An incredible feeling as well. Immensely strong feeling. And so he slept. I'm not even sure if it was for an hour. I doubt it was actually as long as that. But I felt absolutely supercharged, unbelievably superpower charged for a good half a day or more. Just pulsing with energy, Worked fantastic for doing my exam, and felt like I was ecstatic, really lifted. That was just from like the shortest sleep, I've ever had, sort of thing. Really got me interested in it. I saw that, what could be done with this, but I never got it again. I tried and I tried and tried. All I got was insomnia and not being able to fall asleep. I was going in. I got near it, but I couldn't do it. I don't know what the particulars were. I think it was probably maybe I was just so tired that instead of getting insomnia, I did manage to fall asleep. But I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I tried and I tried. I say I tried and I tried. I eventually just gave up after having insomnia until whatever time of night after trying it. But he was a fantastic person. He could do it just like that. And he just do it like that. Amazing. And he would do these workshops around the world. Well, he was saying that while he's doing these trips around the world, it means he was away from his partner a lot of the time, his wife. And so she would practice the same technique. And once they both doing it at the same time, they would sync up, both do it at the same time, and then go meet up and do what's called mutual lucid dreaming. And then that was like, what? Well, that was useful, but what? And then I checked it out on the internet and I found like these clubs of people doing mutual lucid dreaming, setting times for each other to meet up and a place to go meet up. Giza pyramids at 8 p.m. Monday. Okay, then report if what their experiences were. Huh? This exists as well. Oh, that was kind of cool. So I was trying it. They're the kind of fun things like just having a shorter sleep or meeting with your wife. The last one, I'm not sure how good that one really is. I mean, there was another student at university who said he could get it many times easily, frequently when he was younger. I guess it's when you're younger, it's easier. And being a boy, his X-rated to say the least. Do it, whatever you imagine. Bing appears in glorious Technicolor. And his apparently was so lurid. But until one day that this black-robed figure walked in on the whole thing and grabbed him and pulled him down at lightning speed and just scared the absolute hell out of him. And he never had another one after that. So, and I have no idea either what that was. Maybe it was some kind of conscience in there, or I don't know, representing itself in this way. But I'm not commenting on what that was. But he stopped doing that kind of stuff after that. Not the best use of it. It is used in a very spiritual way. And in our tradition, I must admit, we don't touch on it. The Buddha never wrote about this. So I'm not going to even, I can't go into too much detail because, there's nothing from the Buddha himself on this. But there is in Tibetan Buddhism a whole bunch of teachings on this subject from various different key gurus that they worship and pay respect to in Tibetan Buddhism. And so it's from dream yoga. And there it is a very deep practice. They're going into, first of all, getting into this stage of having a lucid dream. And they usually also use, they use both. Sometimes it's the mnemonic form, but a lot of the time it's when they get good at it, they'll use a waking induced lucid dream, which means they just go straight from being awake whoop, into that other state. Mostly it involves visualizing something while you're falling asleep. And for them, it might be visualizing a certain Tibetan character within a lotus or something like that, in terms of flower. And you're visualizing it while you fall asleep and while making a mantra or something like this. There's various of these techniques out there. I'll detail some more in a minute. But once they go in there, they're using it to initially just to learn how to control being in that state. And there's various practices that they deliberately do while in that state. Actually, when you're in that state, it's pretty hard to remember to do anything. You have to have a very clear idea in mind about what you're going to do while you're in there. But when they're in there, then they learn to control things. They see a wall and they deliberately walk through the wall to try and overcome the sense of substantiality to these things. They try to multiply things or make them disappear. In the end, they can make even their body disappear by realizing, they try to realize that everything around them is a dream. Try to realize the essential insubstantiality of it, and then to realize that even their body, therefore, is a dream body and is insubstantial, and they can make that disappear. They're trying to break through this aspect of attaching to things as being concrete and real, and break through that, and thereby break through it in their daily life as well, to realize that this is also has this dreamlike aspect to it, impermanent and transient, and therefore to detach to this. So that, but they also go beyond this dream to what they call the clear light. That is, they strip down. They're in the state, but they strip it away of all the dreamlike elements to it, because eventually, basically, the whole room that they're in is all just dreamlike. So they strip that all away until there's nothing left, until there's just this clear light left, and then they're becoming one with that. That's their basic Tibetan practice in a nutshell. But there are different schools, which do different kind of things with this. And there's many different techniques out there. Another guy I found many years later when I was in Mexico, and this guy was another fabulous, beautiful, beautiful guy, and he was creating sensory deprivation tanks for practicing lucid dreaming. Sensory deprivation tank it's like a big wooden coffin. It's a big wooden box, okay? Bit more comfy than a coffin. It's bigger. And in the bottom of it is this kind of deep, very, very salted water. Okay. So it's a bit like being in the Dead Sea. Okay. Sometimes it's just the water, but sometimes they put it as like a kind of a water bed almost. There's variations on this. And it's all in pitch black. So basically you go inside, you float in the pitch black, and there's no sound either. Although he would play a certain tape that he's created, which is designed to take you into the right brainwave frequency, while he's giving you a guided induction into it. And it's good floating around in there, and you lose a lot of your sense of anything. Most of the senses haven't got any reference points at this point, which is the whole thing. It allows you to let go more easily. His technique seems quite complicated now in recollection. It's probably why it didn't work, I think, for me. Although I really tried a lot on this one as well. Involved visualizing, I think it was like a violet or blue lotus in the throat with a black dot somewhere else as well. And that was the initial stage, and you have to do that while you're falling asleep. And then once the hypnagogic images arise, which is the first images that arise once you're starting to fall asleep. There's some weird little swirls and other very first images before it turns into a proper dream. Once it goes into that state, we have to repeat to ourselves like a mantra, I am dreaming, I am dreaming. But he adds to this, I am dreaming, flipping my hands. Now this is going to sound really weird, okay? But basically, he starts to visualize while in that state his hands flipping, to the extent that he actually had this going underwater, diving in some place in there while looking at our hands and flipping them around and go again and again, looking at them and going, I am dreaming in our mind like this. And the reason is that it turns the two-dimensional images you're seeing into three-dimensional, which it flicks it more into the dreamlike state. So deliberately trying to turn the 2D into 3D using this technique. And if that wasn't complicated enough, as you're getting right, as the dream image is starting to emerge, you then visualize something. There was this film, I can't remember it, but there was this two ladies in a car and they drive over to the cliff and off the cliff. Very famous film from Thelma and Louise, thank you. Yeah. And they visualize something along the lines of that. You going over a cliff or jumping out of an airplane or something which involves you diving and letting go. And it creates this little flick that allows you to jump into the dream and insert yourself inside the dream. And then, you're in your lucid dream. I found it all too complicated and just couldn't fall asleep. as I'm trying this and flipping that, I'm having my little flower here, and where's my dot? And, or eventually, sometime in the night, you eventually fall asleep and wake up. Too complicated. But I gave it a go, and he was amazing. He was an amazing guy. He had records of thousands of these dreams that he'd done. But he wasn't doing much while in them, I don't think. But he did a bit. He did a bit. He was starting to do healing that he generated, gained certain healing powers while he was in there. But I don't know. Well, he ended up being an energy healer and all sorts, which is what actually a lot of the Tibetan Buddhists are also doing. Once they're in that state, they then start to contact their masters who have maybe passed away, but in the in-between state or something, or they visualize Buddhas and bodhisattvas in that tradition, and then try to unify their minds with them. Sometimes they even do use it to travel, to go to different places. They use it, and there's a lot of things that can be done with this. This is all using what we call the dream body, which last week I was talking about. For those who came last week, we talked about how after we have the Dharma sphere at the center of the body, once we attain that one then expands, and there's another 5 spheres after that. Sphere of Sila, Samadhi, Banya, that is morality, concentration, wisdom, and then Vimutti and Vimutti Anatasana, or liberation, seeing and knowing of liberation. These are what, in brief, what we were talking about last week. And at the center of that last one, you suddenly see yourself sitting in meditation at the center of this sphere. But this self looks a little bit different to you, but very easily recognizable as you. I'm not going to describe how it's different. And that is your dream body, or the astral body, or your refined human body. And in this technique, in our meditation technique, we go into that body, and actually we're going to go beyond it. But it is actually possible to actually do stuff at that stage with this body. And you could, in fact, use it to go what they call astrally projecting in the West, astral projection, or using this body to go outside. We don't recommend this, and we don't, certainly some people have practiced it in the early days of this tradition, but Luang Por Wat Nam, the founder, he said to not do this. He forbid it, in fact, because I think it was it was Kunyai who was the founder of our temple in Thailand. When she first of all was meditating with Luang Por Wat Nam, one day she used this body to go out, and once she went out, she couldn't get back in. Turned out some other spirit saw this kind of vacant body and decided to go into it, so she couldn't get back in. But she then sort of meditatively thought about Luang Por Wat Nam, the meditation master, the founder of our tradition, and it kind of helped. Get out. Kick the other one out so she could get back in. But when she came back to out of the meditation, Luang Por Wat Nam told her off and said, don't ever do that again. Never use that body to go outside. We don't use the astral body to do this kind of thing. But in the West, astral projection is so popular. There's tons of books out there on this, and tons of, you use YouTube, just put it in, you'll get so many videos on how to do astral projection, and music and things you can listen to do it and to help you with this. It's huge. I don't recommend it. I've tried it. I was back at university, and I was in my out-of-body experiences and stuff, and I'll talk about that on another week more. But yeah, I mean, you can do that way, but it's probably not the best thing to do. I tried so many different things. There was one thing that was very, very similar to this that I tried when I was doing the Qigong and the Taoism. What they do is they develop an energy body. Now, talking about these inner bodies, we're starting to look at this. Technically, from our side, in my tradition, we don't look at there being an energy body. But in Qigong and in the West, particularly in Theosophy, they look at there being as an energy body. We don't separate the energy body from the physical body, because just as the nervous system cannot be separated from the physical body without the body dying, in the same way the energy body cannot be separated from the physical body without you dying. Okay, it's just another aspect of the physical body. So when we talk about those meridians and the aura and energy centers and chakras and so on, that's the energy body. But actually, it's just one system of the physical body. It's not another body. It's the same system. But these cunning Qigong masters developed a technique where they create loads and loads of energy and then move this ball of energy, of pure refined energy, take it up to the crown chakra. And actually, he was copying this from a Tibetan practice called Powa practice, P-O-W-A. Look it up. And then they shoot it out of the crown chakra above them. And then they mold this body, this energy, into a body. They literally mold it like a clay, putting legs, arms, and so on. And later on, they start creating the energy grid within it, these meridians. We create the main meridians in this energy body, create eyes, ears, and so on, molding a new body. Once that's ready, firmly ready, and then they eject their consciousness through here into that. Initially, it's there and you're in here, but then whoop, you sort of switch into this new energy body. Pretty deep stuff, and also pretty tricky to do. I sort of managed it, but very, very tricky to do. And they then use that body to go traveling and doing all sorts of things. And they use certain protections around the body that they've left while they do this big traveling. And they use that to go gather other energy from planets and solar and different galaxies almost. They use this for all sorts of traveling. That's the deep Taoist master tradition. I found it very, very profound, but here I want to say how it's different in that this energy body is still just energy unless they move this awareness into it. And that awareness they're moving into it is moving the astral body or this refined human body into that. And then it becomes usable. So the difference here between astral projection and what they would sometimes in the West called etheric projection is just this. Etheric projection needs to have the astral body or this your basic normal awareness within that to make it work. And it's pretty difficult to do, to say the least. But again, we don't do that kind of stuff. We try to go beyond these early bodies. We find these bodies still not very wise or very useful in terms of what we are trying to do. But they're kind of interesting and cool. So I was playing around with all that, and I kept on playing around with it until I got to do the yogic way of doing it. Now, the yogis, Indian yogis, have also developed a whole system of this called Nidra yoga, or sleep yoga, effectively, Nidra yoga, where they also try to consciously fall asleep. And they use different techniques. I learned a bunch of those techniques as well, which involve sort of expanding your awareness beyond your feet and beyond your head while you fall asleep, or towards the left side or out towards the right side, both at the same time. So expanding beyond your body while you fall asleep. And that's to switch you into this inner body, which is bigger. I tried it like during the whole night. I would set off my alarm for another 30 minutes or something like that. Then try to fall asleep. And then just accidentally fall asleep. Beep, 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 wake up. Okay. So for another 30 minutes, do that. Like that all night. Night after night, night after night. And so I was so tired. I'm so tired. I was also doing like 5 or 6 hours of Qigong every day, 5 or 6 hours of yoga every day, 3 different types of meditation for several hours every day, and then sleeping effectively for 1 or 2 hours a night while doing this practice all night long. Yeah, it was like, enough. too much. Not the middle way. Not the middle way. I think I need to. I don't think I need to diversify so much. I need to start focusing a bit, and that's where I really started focusing on this style of meditation that we do. But every tradition's done something like that. Our equivalent, and it's not really equivalent, but our way of practicing sleeping is before we go to bed, we kind of tune ourselves up, and which is also what the Taoist tradition they do. They do Qigong before they go to sleep. They get their emotional level really high before they go to sleep. In Buddhism, or Lord Buddha also said, is to do loving kindness meditation before you go to sleep, which tunes you right up, puts you in a wonderful mood. Make sure that if you do sleep, then you get good dreams and that you get a deep sleep. Okay, or had its own benefits. We also recollect our merits or our good deeds, all the good deeds we've done of donations and charity and meditation and being moral and so on, whatever it might be, until we're like delighted with that. And that's also lifting us up. And then we put our mind at the center of the body while we fall asleep and think of our crystal ball, or even expand that crystal ball around us and kind of go to sleep within it. But actually, if you're doing it right, you won't go to sleep because you're meditating. Basically, you're meditating while lying down. And the Lord Buddha said this, is that you should be mindful in all positions, including lying down, mindful and keeping the mind neutral. And so they were in that state, and then they're being mindful, keeping neutral. And what will happen if you're meditating, if you're pretty good at meditation, the body disappears, you go into this inner place and they see light. And then, so in our technique, this one is normally understood as what we actually call falling asleep in the sea of merit, which is pretty hard to gain any sense of unless you understand it in this way. Put it this way, falling asleep in the sea of light would be a much easier way to understand this. Okay. There's all this, you're in this realm of light, which if you meditate enough, you start getting into. Once you're in that state, you just stay there in this, surrounded by this light while the body's resting. The body's resting, but the mind is still meditatively aware. And it stays in that state for a long period of time. The body's comfy. It doesn't need to move around so much. So it can go into that state for many hours. In practice, it won't be, 8 hours, and it won't need to be. Because it's super powerful. Normally when you go to sleep, you're having these 2-hour cycles, and the first 2 hours you go into delta for most of it. Rapidly you go into delta, and you're unconscious for most of that first 2 hours. And then you come out of it, where am I? Toss over, and then go back to sleep. Delta again, but you come back into beta. Theta for a lot, that last period where you're dreaming. And then the next cycle is virtually all dreaming. 4 cycles, definitely all dreaming. And during that dreaming, you're likely to be coming back to beta and switching positions, left side, right side, round and round, around the bed, And then during that last time, you're actually wearing yourself out. You're not actually really getting the rest. That last bit of the sleep is actually doing the reverse effect. If you ever have like a 10-hour sleep, 12-hour sleep, why am I feeling really worse after it? The dreaming is really tiring. It's really tiring. And so is that tossing and turning, moving around in a way. It's not restful. It's the delta sleep, which is the real deep, recharging, refreshing sleep. And when you're going into this meditation, you're in that delta, and you're just in solid delta and deeper than delta for long periods of time. And so that's why you can get away with, for example, our abbot of our temple in Thailand, pretty much as far as I know, since he's ordained, has always had 1 to 2 hours sleep a night. Lomba Wat Nam also always used to have 1 to 2 hours sleep a night. It's very powerful, so that you do it until you eventually come out of it fully recharged. So you get a bit of your life back at night time. that's how we practice it. But even then, if you're going to a more advanced meditation, then you won't just go into the light, but you'll go beyond that light into this Dharma sphere, and then sphere after sphere, and into the dream body. Okay. And then we go beyond that. We go beyond that to the next level, the next level, the next level. What we call dream in dream. This is what Lobel Watbat now very famously called the dream in dream. And is just as a lucid dream is where you leave the physical body, you go into the dream, and suddenly realize that you're dreaming, and this is your dream body. That we then repeat that process. Okay, we repeat that process, and we go to another level beyond that, what we call the dream in dream. Leaving behind that dream body and going beyond it to a deeper body, deeper awareness, and realizing that that was a dream and being aware in this new one, so to speak. We go beyond that level. In fact, we go to several levels beyond it, which, to be fair, for example, Nidra Yoga does also have a goal of going beyond at least 2 stages beyond the dream body. We just go for a really large number of stages beyond it. There's a deep thing there, and I'll go into that as the weeks go by, what goes on till we get to what we call the Dharmakaya, or the body of enlightenment, or the Buddha inside of us, the Buddha nature inside of us, which is what our final, sort of final destination is. So there's a little summary of various different practices that there are out there, whether it's yogic or whether it's Tibetan or whether it be Taoist. But the traditional Buddhist technique is what we call body in body, and going through while we're being aware in all the positions, but when we're sleeping here, being aware at the same time, keeping in mind at the center, in the body. Has a lot of the same benefits, but we don't maybe use it in the same way as some of those techniques do. But later on, there's a lot that you can do while you're in that state as well. So there's my little summary. Okay, I will take questions now on this really weird subject.